What is up everyone, Base Diluc here with another Genshin Impact video. Since Zhongli got buffed in the last update, many players believe that he's now on the same level as Venti. The Mondstadt Archon has been regarded as the top tier support for a very long time, but now the Leeway Archon, which was way behind him in the tier lists, received tweaks to his kit, making them compete very closely to each other. In this video, I will try to establish which one is the better support for both utility and burst opportunities. So between Venti and Zhongli, who is the best Archon? Let's find out. Before going into the analysis, I will quickly compare their builds by explaining my weapon and artifact choices. Both of these units have lots of flexibility with their builds depending on the role you want them to fill. As for Venti, he is geared towards a burst support role where he will allow your main DPS to be more efficient and output more damage. I am personally using the Stringless, which is arguably his best in slot at R5. This weapon is amazing because of its passive, which increases both your skill and burst damage. On top of that, the Elemental Mastery substat will significantly boost his swirl damage, which is very valuable for his support role. Now, if you get your hands on any of the 5-star bows, I would probably recommend the Skyward Harp over Amos bow, but he definitely benefits more from a supportive bow rather than a main DPS bow. So in my opinion, as long as we don't have a 5-star support bow for him, I believe that the Stringless is a much better investment here. For his artifacts, I would obviously recommend running the full set Viridescent Veneer, as it will shred the enemy's resistance depending on what element you swirl with it. If you plan on using another Animo unit with the 4-piece VV, I would recommend the 2-piece Noblesse with 2-piece Viridescent because the 4-piece effect does not stack. In terms of main stats, I'm using a crit rate circlet with an energy recharge timepiece and an Animo damage cup. The timepiece can also be attack or elemental mastery, but in my case, I prefer the energy recharge to get his burst more quickly. For substats, you should look for energy recharge, crit multipliers, elemental mastery, and attack. My stats are nowhere near perfection, but he is the kind of unit that will be insanely useful even at a low investment. And the same thing goes for Zhongli, which is the other Archon we will look at. He is geared towards a burst support role as well as a shielding bot role that will make your main and sub DPS invulnerable to loads of damage while allowing them to be full-time in combat. For this build, his weapon is the Skyward Spine, which is mainly used for the energy recharge substat and a high base attack. Its passive won't be very useful except for the tiny increase on crit rate, and again, the current 5-star spears aren't very optimized for supporting units, and we may see better options in the future. Currently, I believe the Skyward Spine is the best choice overall, but a Favonius Lance would yield very similar results because of the energy recharge it will provide. Now, in terms of artifacts, I think the better option is 2-piece Noblesse with 2-piece Archaic Petra. It is also possible to run 4-piece Archaic Petra, but since you need to pick up the shards with Zhongli in order to get the damage buff, this makes it very situational, and 2-piece Noblesse seems to be a more consistent choice. For the main stats, I will be using a crit damage circlet, an HP timepiece, and a geo damage cup. You can also swap the timepiece to attack, but the HP will significantly make your shield more tanky. The substats you should look for are crit multipliers, HP, energy recharge, and attack. Again, this isn't a perfectly optimized build, and there's a lot of room for improvement. Now that we have had a good look at my builds, it's time to compare their kits. Regarding their talents, the normal attacks on both of them have relatively low scaling compared to other units, so they don't have to be leveled up for a support build. Both of their E skill have a press and hold option. On Venti, it is preferable to press because it will be used to swirl elements and generate particles. Holding this skill will increase the cooldown and take much more field time. However, on Zhongli, I would recommend always using the hold option as it will summon both the shield and the pillar. With enough HP, you can have 100% uptime with this ability, and it requires very little field time. This will bring both safety and utility with the damage absorption and the universal resistance shred. With their burst, both Venti and Zhongli will provide top tier crowd control. Venti's burst will be able to group up opponents and deal massive swirl damage for 8 seconds. This amazing crowd control ability will work in most domains in Abyss Floor, but it falls short against large enemies and won't be very useful against bosses. However, this is a good trade-off considering the 7-second downtime and the low energy cost. When it comes to Zhongli's burst, the crowd control it provides will mostly act as a reset button that will allow repositioning for a few seconds while also dealing decent damage. The petrify effect that will follow the explosion lasts around 2 or 3 seconds depending on your talent level. This is much less than Venti's uptime, but it can petrify everything in the game except bosses. Now let's take a deeper look at how they compare for the roles they will fill. When it comes to their utility capabilities, the resistance decrease they can both provide is a big debate. Before Zhongli's Universal Shred, the Verdicent Veneer 4-piece effect was a must-have in most team comps. However, now that we have a Universal Shred that will apply to all of your party's damage output, the best choice for defense reduction isn't as clear. Let's see how they compare when fighting the same enemy with a Diluc Vape comp and a Ganyu Melt comp. As I expected, the effect from Venti's artifact slightly outdamaged Zhongli's shield debuffs on a single target. However, there are a lot of nuances when it comes to this comparison. In fact, this is quite misleading as it doesn't take in consideration how situational this effect can be when used against the Abyss, large group of enemies, or simply when swirling the wrong element. Despite dealing slightly more damage because of the scaling difference, 40% versus 20%, this resistant shred pales in comparison when taking into consideration the fact that Zhongli's shield debuffs as 100% uptime, it doesn't require any setup, and it will buff literally all elemental damage and physical damage. This makes him a top choice for boosting neutral DPS units like physical, animo, or geo damage dealers. When it comes to utility in the form of crowd control, both of these units have a very strong burst that will allow you to control the field. In my opinion, Venti's crowd control is more efficient as it lasts longer and it really sets you up for insane clears. But as mentioned earlier, it falls short against large enemies that Zhongli would otherwise petrify. However, I still believe that Zhongli's burst is slightly weaker in terms of CC when compared to Venti because it doesn't last as long and won't reposition the enemies. When it comes to the safety aspect of their kit, both of them have something different to offer. In the case of Venti, he has very limited safety capabilities, but the crowd control from his burst will be enough to interrupt the attacks of enemies like Abyss Mages, Fatui Agents, and Electrocystin, which may prevent you or the objective you're defending to take damage. Unfortunately, this level of safety is nothing compared to the shield that Zhongli can provide. The high elemental damage absorption will be insanely valuable as it applies to all content in the game, and the uptime on this ability is near constant. So all in all, the safety role is definitely one where Zhongli has a clear advantage compared to Venti. The last role their kit can fill is obviously burst damage. Both of them will strongly rely on their Q ability to deal this damage. On paper, Zhongli's damage scaling is slightly higher, but when taking in consideration the uptime and elemental damage increase provided by the swirl in Venti's burst, it is very close to Zhongli's. Now to answer the main question, who is the best support between these two? Well, the answer is nuanced and may change in the future, but for now, I think it's safe to say that they both perform at a very close level and they shine in different situations depending on the content you're facing. They both require relatively low resource investment to tap into their potential and will excel at making your party hit like a truck. With that in mind, if I had to recommend one or the other, I would personally pick Zhongli over Venti because his support abilities will be used at all times no matter what situation you find yourself in. To sum up, Venti's selling point is the strong CC and burst damage opportunity provided by his elemental burst, while Zhongli's selling point is the safety and utility provided by his E skill. All in all, they compete very closely to each other, and I believe that they are both must-pull units as they will make any main DPS better. Venti is insanely strong for supporting elemental damage dealers, while Zhongli will enable neutral carries. For this reason, if I had to only recommend one of them, I would lean towards Zhongli because his kit will be used to its full potential more consistently throughout all content, no matter who you have in your party. Now that's going to be it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed this content. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. I will catch you all in the next one. Peace.